Thank you for joining me in watching part 2 of this pit bull picture. If you saw part 1 of this video, then you probably knew that I wasn't going to continue with the tutorial, but since I was going to do the time-lapse video, I decided to go ahead and finish this picture for you. I didn't have the equipment to store a lot of video, and that is why I have 2 videos. And if this is your first time watching my videos, please check out my other videos as well. I continued adding layers of the green in the highlighted areas to indicate definition and depth to the face, as well as color to my heart down here. See if I can show this to you. My little signature heart that I put in most of my pictures of my pit bulls or my dogs. And so I colored that in as what I wanted for color. And you can do whatever you want. You can add different imaging or a different picture. It's just an idea. We are continuing to add our highlights, and you add water where you want the dark spots to be over the existing paint. Don't rub too hard because it will take off your paint. And we'll go with a darker green. You can add a little bit of black if you want some shading. Not a lot, but just kind of mix it up in your pan. And then drop it in here. And this will be where you want your darker highlights. And like I said before, if you want to get another dog for reference to kind of see where you want your shading and everything, that would be okay. You can go ahead and do that. And I don't have anything for reference here except for my own dog's picture. And if you saw my first video, then you'll know that this is just based on my dog's face, but with cropped ears, which he didn't have. And I'm just going to go ahead and do this and make sure that this is dry before adding on any more layers once you put your first layer down. And then you can speed up the process with a hairdryer or wait for it to naturally dry, which could be a couple of hours. And just keep doing this on the areas, add the water and then your paint on the other dry areas. And keep doing this until you build it up. And I'm going to just go ahead and speed up this process until we're done with the green. As I'm laying down this green, I noticed there was some areas that were completely white, so I just take my brush that's full of water that has, when I'm gonna rinse it, I will bring it back over, and it's got some green still left in it, just light, and I just put that over the dry spots that have the white, just to give it a light shade of green. And this way I can get rid of that really bright white. But in some other areas where I wanted to keep the white, like right here, it's dry and it's white, so I kept that and I kind of went around it just to give a little bit of white in there to highlight some areas of white, just to give it contrast. No other reason really, but you can work with it and put it wherever you want and see what you like. And what I'm going to do is probably darken up around here a little bit more around the eyes, but I'm going to let that dry and come back to it. I wanted to give a look of maybe like a little brow right here with some darkness for definition for his eye. So I go in real light because I might add later to it and I want it to look right. So just add a little green in there, just kind of a wrinkled brow. And then rinse out your brush and go back in and just lighten up down here by the eye with a little shade of that green that's still left in your brush to soften it up. And like I said, if you do layers, you can correct your mistakes as you go along. If you do light washes and go to dark, and then that way you can correct yourself if you make a mistake. So then let that dry and then come back to it. The paint's dry now, so I notice here I got a brow that's dark, so I might add some more down in here to make this darker. So we know another layer of paint and spread it out good, but not really hard because you don't want to rub off the last paint. And then come back in with a darker green and just kind of drop it in, see if you can get a brow. And if it's too dark, just kind of rub it out some because it will dry lighter than what it is. And just go over what you had there. Don't go beyond the water, because if you do, then it will come out with a harsh line. And then rinse your brush off. Come back with a little bit of water right here to let that bleed. But don't touch it too much, and then let that dry and come back and add more if you need to. See what it looks like. That looks a lot better. It's much darker than what it was before. So I still want to add color to that to make it a little darker and define this edge up here. So more water. And I'm going to bring the water down in here and up in the ear a little bit right here. And take some of that green and drop it in. Where I want that nice dark line to be. And let that bleed in. Maybe a drop here and there. And then let that dry, and I'll come back and work on that some more. As we can see, this looks a lot better with the darker color after all the layers I put on. And I'm going to touch this up a little bit more. Just a fine line right in here with not as dark as this, but just lighter here. And then I'm going to do the body here. And I want you to do the same process as you were doing before, doing the light wash and then adding in the highlights. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up that process, and then when we're done with the green, then we'll come back and maybe highlight the eyes some more. Another suggestion that you could do is when you get your water down in the areas you want to add more green color or highlights, you can wet it, add your color, the green, in these areas you want. And if you want to add a variety, like I have a little blue or pink or purples in here, you can take a color, and here I'm going to do blue, and just kind of dab it in there to add a little effect. And just smooth it out a little up around the edge. Because sometimes if you want a soft highlight and you want a black, but not a harsh black, you could do some black, not black, blue, the color blue, a nice dark blue, and mix it in with the color, and that will give you a nice soft highlight. So that's a suggestion you could do. And it doesn't have to be this color. You can pick any color, the color, main color that you're using. And then just let that dry. And if you can repeat that process if you need more color. All right, here where I put the blue in with the green, you see a little bit of a different shade of color. And I really like it. So what I want to do though is go back and add a little bit more dark in here just to give a suggestive shadow. And I'm going to use probably more of that blue, maybe green mixed with the blue, but I'm going to do it closer in to the face. Maybe just to bleed a little bit up here. I don't want to get it across this line because what I'll do is probably back drag in there, see if I can get some color in it. But I want to take the dark green that I had and go along this line, and then just drop a little bit of blue in there. Not a lot, just a little. And then clean my brush, dry it off really good. And get a little bit of clean water and just kind of run a line along the other side, just so it will fade in just a little bit. And there you go. And then let that dry and we'll see what it looks like. And I'm going to do the other side too, and I'll speed up that process. All right, my highlights are in here and they look pretty good. So I'm going to go back up here and concentrate on the face. And right here I got the spot that I'd like to make a little bit darker so I can even out this face a little bit and make this more even, because it just looks a little funny to me. And what I might do is add some light green in here, just a little bit, to make it lighter here, and then just add a little bit of dark here. So I will go ahead and speed that up, but it's the same process as what we have been doing, and doing the light wash, put the water down, the light wash, and see how it looks after it dries, and keep repeating that until we get the proper color that we want. Okay, so I want to come in and work on the highlights on these eyes, and I don't want to ruin this at this stage. Hopefully I don't. So we're going to wet this little spot right along the highlight or the eyeliner with water, clean water. Make sure you get your clean water. And I'm going to use the tip of my 8 brush. I'm going to just run a line of water along this edge. And I want to come in with a dark green right out of your dry palette with the liner brush. You're going to take some of this, and you want to work fast as you can and run it in the edge. With that steady hand. And then I'd let that dry and come back and repeat it if you have to. Now you want to do the same process for the upper lid. Same thing. Add your water with your number 8 brush. And then take the dark green on your liner brush and just go along the edge. With a steady hand if you can. It's a little hard. And then let that dry, and then do the same thing for the other eye. Okay, that didn't come out too bad. So I do want to add more highlight down here. And what I'm going to do is add water, and we're going to add a light wash over this with the color, but we're going to put water down, put it way out because you want it to bleed. Take your dark green that's pretty well diluted with some water so it's not too harsh, and just cover the edge of the eye where you wet it down, and then bring it down into here, but don't go beyond the water line because you'll get a harsh pigmentation or a harsh line. And then let that dry. We'll do the other side. So every light layer you put on will make it dark eventually as you continue to do this. So you can go ahead and let that dry on naturally, or you can go ahead with the hair dryer. I let it dry naturally because I like the marbling that effect that you get when it sits there. The standing water will sit. It disperses the color better and it looks so pretty. So we'll come back and finish up the eye. And what you'll do is just do the top the same way. I like how the eyes are coming out. They are starting to get there, not as good as I want right now. So I'm still going to add water and light washes to highlight the eyes. And I'm going to continue this process until I get what I like out of it, till I get everything the way I want it. So you can continue to do this to how you like it. I'm going to speed up this process because it's the same thing, repetitive stuff over. So just continue to do that with the light washes all the way around until you get it to how you like it. And then we will continue on from there. But this right here that I'm doing is I put in the water and then put in that dark green at a light wash, but then I rinse my brush and come back and put what was left in the brush, which is a light green, washed out some more, and just kind of spread that out a little to cut down the hard lines and the white that's shining through, and left my darker pigmentation there. I'm not working with it very much because I don't want the color to disperse out over here. So I'm going to leave it alone and keep drying it with a hair dryer, or come back later and just keep touching up everything I need. And then we will work on the rest of it later. But this is what you need to do around the eyes until you get them right. And these are suggestions. So I'm going to speed up through everything else, and you can follow along or slow it down with the suggestions I have. So without a reference, I'm just kind of going with what's in my head on my dog. So you can do whatever you want for the picture you have. Right here on the side of the eye, I have this a little harsh. So what I did was, when it was slightly dry, I came back in with a damp brush and pulled some of this away so it doesn't look as harsh, and pulled it over here into the side of the face to darken that up a little into a lighter shade, just to take away the harsh line that was under the eye. And then, since I seem to have too much white, it just looked too white, just go over this a little bit to dampen down that white. Now I have a heavy hand sometimes, so I like to try to keep it light as much as I can because that's not my normal thing. Usually I overwork a piece until the point that it's frustrating for me because I want to add all that detail. And other artists have talked about that online with watercolor, and it can be a problem. And I've been trying to work on lightening up my pictures so I don't put as much color in and try to utilize the white that's in the picture. So just be aware of that and try to work on it. But I think I'm going to let this dry, and then I'll come back and we'll do more down here on the nose and the lips. For the lip area, I'm going to mix up some color to use here, like a pink and a blue, maybe a little bit of purple, and get a color that I like. And once you do that, you might want to put it on a piece of scrap paper just to see if it's a good color that you'll use for the lips. Now, in the first video that I did, you'll see where I had mixed up the colors and then put it on one of these to see if I liked it and then use it. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and mix that up, and then I will fast forward you through doing the lips. You can do the light wash and continue to do as we did on the rest of the head and let it dry and keep applying your layers until you get it looking the way you like. And I'm going to just speed up that process through here. Now on a bully breed, if you want a bully breed on this one, you can make this lip go down a little bit lower and do some highlights in here. Or on this one, if I want just maybe a classic pit bull or a standard American, I'm going to try to keep the lip not so prominent, not hanging down. So I'm just going to pretty much highlight just around under here. But you can see it throughout the next video, or when I speed up the process on how I do that. And then we'll come back and go over what we did. This part right here is still slightly damp, so I'm going to add just a little bit of water right in here to add a light, very light wash of green to mix that pink. I don't want a lot, but just enough to subtly mix in with the pink. And that is still slightly damp. And this one's still slightly damp, so I'm going to add a little here too. And just remember to go beyond where you want to put the paint so that it will bleed instead of leaving really dark lines when it dries. I want to leave a white, kind of a white lip right here with a little green. So I'm going to go underneath this. This is all dried from our last time. And I want to make this really dark. So go beyond where you want the paint to go. And don't color in the lip. And we're going to add that darker green and work up our shading. And then let that dry and we'll go back with some more. The nose is dry, so I want to darken in the nostrils. I was going to leave it a dark green, but I think I'll go with maybe some really dark blue with black to mix that up. So you want to start out with a light wash again. So wet the paper beyond where you want it. Not too much, because you just want it to bleed out some, but not a lot. I think I got too much water, so you can blot your brush on the paper towel and pull up some of that water if you get too much. And then we'll let that dry and we'll go back in and refine it a little bit more. The lips are dry. I'm going to go over the area I want to line with a little tint of green. Just go beyond the line a little, just a little bit. And we're going to drop in a light, well, a little bit darker than what is there for green, right at the tip here. Maybe a little bit darker here, just so it will bleed out from the line. And then I work it out, because there's dry paper right here. Work it down and then the paint will follow. Just to add a little definition. And then wash out your paintbrush just a little bit, because you want some green highlight or paint left in it. Just dab it on the paper towel, make sure it's not too much. And then just run it over this to add a little bit more highlight to that color. And if it connects there, it's okay. As long as it's close, it's not going to bleed out too much. And if you feel you got too much water, you can dab it off with a paper towel, or you can rinse your brush out on a paper towel and come back and just roll it over and pull up some of that. Then we'll let that dry. My lips, or jowls, or whatever you want to call them, right here need to be a little bit darker, but light shaded. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on fast mode. And again, you just add your water and then a light wash of the green until you like the color, until it kind of blends into the outline of the face, and just see how that goes. And I may be overworking it again, I don't know. I'm just going to try it and see. So I'll do that on fast mode and speed it up a little bit for you. When you wait for a piece to dry, you can actually work on other sections of the picture, avoiding the area that you have wet if you don't want to come back to it later. I just like to come back to it later. I do pieces of it because I just can't stay in one spot very long. So that's what I do, and you can actually continue on and work on the ears or the bottom part or whatever is your desire. On here I wanted to add some more color, so I'm still going to continue to layer and shape this mouth and the nose. I added in that color here and over here. This is still kind of damp, so I'm just going to go under here because this is dry. So I'm going to work on that and wait for that to dry. In my first video, starting out with this picture, I said I didn't really like the quality of this paper, but I'm actually starting to like it. So with this paper, I have realized that it's got such grooves in it. It's raised up and it's just all in one line that you can take water and put it on here and add your color, and if you tip it, it runs in the grooves, and I kind of like that now that I am used to it. So it might be something worth doing if you buy this paper, and I will try to find a link and put it below. But see, it runs, I don't know if you can see that, but it runs in the grooves. And it gives a really neat effect. So I think I like that feature. And then this has water on the bottom. You can just run this along the edge and pull some of that up, and then add more paint as you need it. This is about the stage where I'm going to leave this, and from here you can continue on and do what you want to finish the picture. Can highlight more on the ears to give it definition, more around the nose if you want, and around the bottom part. So just continue with the water and the layering with the white light wash until you get the color depth that you want. And pretty much the eyes is what the focal point that I wanted. I might do a little bit more creative stuff to it. But thank you so much for joining my video, and if you like it, please subscribe and hit the like button, and I will try to get more out, and hopefully I can get better at it. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you liked it, and give me any comments, and thank you and have a good day.